Hi everybody. Once again, I'm Juana and I work for the Memphis Public Library, and today is our second session on beginning knitting. And I thought what we would do today is kind of go back over what we did in the class last week. The first thing we did was make a loop so we can get the yarn onto the needle. Then we did casting on, and then we did the purl stitch. That's pretty much where we had. And so you want to make a loop, everybody? Have you got it down pat? You know, once you keep doing it, your hands will be doing less and less movement. So we're going to do quite a bit movement right now, but it'll get smaller. So you remember dangle the yarn with the tail. Remember, the tail is the one that flops around, and the other one that is connected to the ball of your yarn. So take your yarn, just dangle it over your fingers, and then do it one more time with the part that goes to the ball of your yarn. Just loop it around your hand. Then, mine curled. And then you should have an opening. So go on your knuckles. Go through that opening and grab the yarn that is attached to your ball and pull that up, and that should be a loop. Does everybody have a loop? Cindy, you having trouble putting it with your loop? I don't think so. Hi, Karen. Hi, Cindy. Okay, do it again.
Hello.
Take the yarn with the tail end next to your body, and then loop it around one more time. And then you're going to have the yarn that is attached to the ball of yarn, and go along your knuckle in that opening and grab the yarn that's dangling down that goes to the ball and pull it up, and you have a loop. And then we'll just shorten it with the dangling with the part of the tail of the yarn closest to you. Now we're going to take it off and do it one more time. The reason we're going to do that is we're going to cast on today. So a rule of thumb is however wide your piece is going to be, how many stitches you're going to cast on, that's how much tail you need, because remember, we're doing the long tail cast on. That's the name of it, the long tail cast on. So if we're going to put on like 15 stitches, that's what we'll do today, 15 stitches, then let's take it a little bit more. See, we have like 10 inches in front of us. Now pull off like 10 inches more, and then a little bit to grow on. Now let's make our loop. So it's around your hand, around again, reach through the opening, get the yarn that's attached to the ball of your yarn, pull it through, and you have a loop. So let's get going with our knit stitch. So you would grab the two pieces, the two strands of yarn, the one going to the ball and the one that's the floppy one, which is the tail. Grab them together. Take your forefinger, your pointer finger, and put between and pull it out like this. Then take your thumb and pull it the other way. That should give you like a slingshot. Anna, you're ahead of us. So just make that's good. Just make like a slingshot out of it. Now, turn your hand toward yourself. Now, take your needle and go under the yarn that is on the back of your thumb. Go on the top of the yarn that's on your pointer finger. Pull it through and onto your needle. Under the thumb, over, pull it through and onto your needle, trying not at the same time to make it very tight. The reason is when you go to knit your first row, if it's very tight, that first row is the hardest row you do. And if it's too tight, it's going to make it very hard to get your needle in. Okay, under your thumb, forefinger, pull it through, under your needle. Under your thumb and over, pull, and on your needle. I can only see what you all are doing. I can't see what anybody else is doing, but you guys are doing well. Anna, you okay? Okay, that's good. Under your thumb, over your forefinger, pull it through, and onto your needle. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How's everybody doing? Mary, how are you doing? Good? Oh, look how far ahead of us you are. Okay, under, over, through, and onto your needle. I'm going to put 15 stitches on here. We have 2, we have 4, we have 6, we have 8, we have 10. Okay, let's go 5 more. You want to speed it up a little bit? Under, over, through, and on your needle. Under, over, through, and on your needle. Annie, you want us to slow down a little bit? You sure? We can. No problem. Under, over, through, and onto your needle. Under, over, through, and onto your needle. Under, over, through, and on your needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's check our stitches. We have 2, we have 4, 6, we have 8, 10, 12, 14. We have 16, so off one goes. Okay, can you look at the bottom of your stitches? Just turn your needle over and look at the bottom. How does it look? It's supposed to be neat and all the same sizes. But that's hard to get done in the beginning. That's really, really hard to get done in the beginning. Mary, how you doing? You need us to go over something?
No.
We can easily.
Our
No
cat
problem.
wants to knit too.
You can.
No, our cat wants to knit.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna do the knit stitch. You remember the loops and the bumps? Okay. Take your needles, switch your yarn to the other hand, and remember the loops and the bumps. We're going to take our needle and we'll put it in the bottom of the first loop, right on top of the bumps. Right, let it sit on the bumps. And so take your yarn. I do mine this way, and it's however it's comfortable to you. I take my last 2 fingers, wrap it around the yarn a couple of times, so that I then have this finger to control the gauge, the tension. Okay, we put the needle in the bottom of the first loop. Take your yarn, wrap it all the way around that far needle, pull it through, and off it goes. In the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off it goes. The bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off you go. The bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. Okay. Anna, how are you doing? Are you okay? Mary, are you doing okay? Okay. So we're going to go under the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off we go. Now, I've been doing the loops. You know, you can do the loop really big if you want to. Like this, you can just really make it big. Or the longer you knit, the shorter you're going to make it. So In the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. In the bottom of the loop is 1, yarn around is 2, pull it through is 3, off your needle is 4. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is everybody okay? All right, let's finish. We have 5 more stitches. So under the first loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your yarn. First loop at the bottom, put your yarn around, bring it through, and off your needle. Under the first loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Under the first loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. The last one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we've done 2 rows. Look, I think that makes us a knitter, don't you think so? I think so. I think we're doing really well. I hope by the time we finish another couple of classes, we'll be able to start a scarf. How about that? That'll be good. So be deciding what you want to do. So I thought today it would be a good time for us to start doing another stitch. The knit stitch is absolutely the basis for knitting. If you know the knit stitch and you have it down really well, then you're going to be able to do really anything you want. You can do pot holders, you can do pillow covers, you can do scarves, you can do sweaters, you can do a skirt, you can do all kinds of things. So, but to vary it, let's do the purl stitch. Now, the purl stitch is going to be opposite of the knit stitch, but it's really the same thing, but we're just going to do it in 2 sides of the yarn. Okay, pull your yarn instead of behind you like we did for the knit stitch. Let's pull your yarn in front of you. And then take your knitting needle, and once again, we're going to go under the bottom of the stitch, on top of the bump, under the bottom. Now the yarn is in front of you, right? So take the yarn, wrap it around the needle that is closest to your body, pull it through, and slide it off. That's a purl stitch. Yay, you've done 2 stitches, 2 types of stitches. Under the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off it goes. Bottom of the stitch, yarn is towards you, the yarn is at your body, yarn around, pull it through, and off. Bottom of the stitch, yarn around, pull it off, and onto your needle. Once again, bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, off your needle. Yarn's in front of you. Remember, yarn's in front of you. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, off the needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it off, pull it through, and off the needle. Same thing, bottom of the loop. The more we do this, the more your hand memory sort of kicks in. It sort of becomes automatic. At first, I know when I was learning to knit, I felt like I had, 10 arms, 20 fingers. It was just, I just couldn't get everything together. But the more you knit, the more it becomes sort of automatic and you don't have to work at it so much. So we're going to do a few more stitches. Under the bottom loop, yarn around, through, and off. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off. 5 more stitches. bottom of the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Last week, when we did all stitches, the first rows of stitch, the second rows of stitch, third rows of stitch, a knit, I'm saying stitch. When our rows were knit stitches, that was the garter stitch. Remember, that was the garter stitch. Now, today, we're going to work on the stockinette stitch. If you look at what you've done in front of you, the bottom has bumps, but right above it is smooth. That's because we used a knit and a purl stitch. So the next row is going to be a knit stitch. Is everybody there? Mary, you okay? Anna? You okay? Okay, good. I like that signal. Yeah, good. Okay, so we're going to do stitches. We're going to do knit stitch. Can't get all those words out. One, 2, 3, and off. 1, yarn around, pull it through, and it's off. Put it in the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off. Bottom of the stitch, yarn around, pull it through, and off it goes. Through the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The needle in the bottom of the stitch, around, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Bottom of the stitch, yarn around, bring it through, and off the needle. Last one. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Off the needle. Now look. Now let's look at what you've done. Does it look flat on one side? The side that looks flat is going to tell you that you've done a stockinette stitch. If you did all knit stitches, it's going to look like the back of your yarn. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be bumpy like this. This is an example of the stockinette stitch. The garter stitch. That's all stitches. First row, second row, third row, all stitches. And this is an example of what we're doing right now. And this is the stockinette. So on one side it's flat, and the other side it's bumpy. One side is flat, one side's bumpy. This is like most of your sweaters are. When you look at your sweaters, most of them were done in the stockinette stitch. Okay. Now this time, let's do the purl stitch again, and you ready to go a little faster, a little bit. Then we're going to do something else. Okay, your needle into the base of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and onto the other needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Remember, your yarn is in front of you. Through the bottom of the stitch, the yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. To the bottom of your stitch, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. The bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Ooh, we're doing so much. We almost have a sweater here, I think. Off in the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Bottom of the loop, put it around, pull it through, and on your needle. And remember, the reason we're doing this over and over and over again is so that you can get the memory in your hand so that it just sort of happens automatically. You can talk to your friends, you can talk on the phone, you watch television, you can do it and you just automatically do this. That's the memory in your fingers. In the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and onto your needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, off of the knit. Bottom of the loop, yarn around. Here's the last one, and off your needle. Okay? How's your yarn? How's your masterpiece looking? Looks pretty good, huh? Haven't we look how much we knitted. That's a lot, I think. Not a lot. Okay. So what happens when you'll say, okay, I've been working on this scarf now for 3 days and it's finished. I have finished my scarf. How are you going to get it off the needle so that you can wear it? That's called binding off. We had to cast off in the beginning in order to get the yarn onto the needle. Now we have to bind off in order to get it off. So we've finished our scarves. So we're now ready to bind off so we can wear them. Okay. Put your needle into the bottom, the first stitch on the bottom of the loop like we always do. Yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Now do one more stitch. Bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off the needle. Okay, now we're going to make it leapfrog. We're going to take the first stitch that you put onto your right needle, and we're going to put our needle into the bottom of the first loop. The first stitch that we put on our right needle, take your needle and go through the bottom of that loop, kind of pull it up, take your finger and hold that top stitch that's on your left needle, and then pull it through and off. Now, we just dropped a stitch. Instead of having 2 stitches, we now have 1 stitch. Oh, we're magic, aren't we? Okay, take your needle at the bottom of the next stitch, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Oh, we have 2 stitches again. Okay, so take the tip of your needle and put it under the loop, under the first needle that you put onto your right hand needle. Tighten, hold onto the top with your thumb, and then pull that up and pull it through and off your needle. Now we have 1 needle again, so we've dropped 2 stitches. How are you doing? This is kind of tricky. Did you do okay, Emma? Mary, you all right? That's kind of tricky. But when you get it, it's okay, and you'll learn little nuances of what you do with your right needle and your left needle to make it go off smoothly. But in the beginning, that can be, you can feel kind of clumsy. So put your needle in the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it off, and onto your needle. Now take your left-hand needle, put it into the bottom of the loop of the first stitch that you put onto this needle. And then kind of put it up a little bit with your thumb, pull it off, and onto the right needle. Now we have one stitch on again. So we're going to always, to the very beginning and to the very end, we're going to have 2 stitches, then 1 stitch, and 2 stitches, and then 1 stitch. That's how the binding off works. So at the bottom of the loop, yarn around, pull it off, and onto your needle. Now we're going to do the leapfrog again. The tip of your needle into the loop onto the first stitch that you put onto your right needle. Pull that through and off. Now we have 1 stitch again. Isn't that magic? Now if you look at how your stitches are coming off, they should look kind of all the same. Okay, under the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and onto your needle. Now we're going to leapfrog again. Under the needle, the needle under the loop, pull it up, and your needle at the same time, and pull it off. Now we have 1 stitch again. Okay, let's do that again. Under the loop, yarn around, pull it through, and off your needle. Okay, we're going to leapfrog again. Put your needle in the bottom of the very first stitch that you put onto this right-hand needle. And pull it over and onto your needle, onto your right needle, and that's going to give us 1 stitch again. Do not feel bad if you mess this up. Just don't feel bad, because this is kind of complicated, and you can feel kind of clumsy when you do it. But just go back in if you can and just start all over. Under your needle under the first loop, yarn around, pull it through, off your needle. Now we have 2 stitches, and we only want 1 stitch. So take your needle, put it at the bottom of the loop under the first stitch that you put onto that needle on the right-hand side. Pull it through, and then pull it off. Do it again. A knit stitch, as usual, as normal. Pull it off, and now we have 2 stitches again. Now we're going to leapfrog. The needle in the bottom of the loop under the first stitch that you put on your right-hand needle, pull that through and off. We have 5 more to go. Put the needle under the loop, around, pull it through like a normal knit stitch, and off. And now we have 2 stitches again, and let's get rid of 1. Needle under the loop, under the first stitch, onto the right-hand needle, pull it through and off. Under, around, pull it through and onto your needle. It's another knit stitch. Leapfrog, tip of your needle under the first stitch that you put on, pull it through and onto the needle. Okay, 3 more. Needle under the loop, do a normal knit stitch, pull it around, pull it through, and off to your needle. Okay, 1 more lips. Okay, we're going to jump over this one, and off. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 more stitch, and then we'll finish this. Okay, needle under the first loop under the first stitch, pull it through and off. And the last time, a normal knit stitch, the needle under the first loop, yarn around, pull it through and off. Now look, if this was our scarf, wouldn't we be proud? I'd be proud. Okay, now let's pull this. Okay, I'm sorry, we forgot to leapfrog the last one. Okay, now you can pull it up like this. And what we're going to do, or at least we're going to talk about doing it, we're not going to really do it, is we're going to take this, if it's a single, we're going to cut this off and pull it back through and pull it up, and now you've tied a knot so that your scarf really is finished this time. You've tied a knot on the end so it can unravel, and so now you can wear your scarf, except this is a little bitty scarf. This would have to be a little bitty doll scarf. So how did that go? Anna, you all right? Good, I like that symbol. Mary, you all right? Cindy, are you totally confused? You haven't done this before, have you, Cindy? Karen, you okay? Good. Okay. If we're going to make a stitch, if we're going to make a scarf, and let's say you go to someplace where they're selling yarn, and you go, I want to make a scarf. I think this yarn looks really pretty. I think I'll buy this yarn. Well, there's something that you need to do before you pick out your yarn. You need to learn how to read the labels on the packaging of the yarn. Like, this is one that I'm going to start pretty soon, and it's brand new. So before I get started on this, I need to read and see what this label says. This label says that it is 35 yards of yarn, 135 yards of yarn. So then I look at my pattern, and the pattern says that you're going to need 100 yards of fabric. You go, okay, good. There's enough in here to do that. And then the next thing it's going to say is that in order to knit with this particular yarn, you should use a size 10 needles. So, because you wouldn't want to use a big fat needle like this on a really, really tiny little fine yarn like this. So it's going to tell you what size, it's going to tell you how much yarn is in here, and your project's going to tell you how many yarn you need, how many yards you need, and then it's going to tell you what size needle, and then you use that needle. And we talked about it in the first session. We talked about the different kinds of needles, metal versus plastic versus wooden. And so I think you need to stick with the bamboo needles, the wooden needles, because they adhere to the yarn, and you don't want to have it all your stitches slip off of your needle, and all of a sudden there you are and you have a mess. So I think wood is better for holding that on. So how are we with time? How many? Okay. Do you all have any questions for me? No? Annie, you have any questions? So what's your no symbol? That's your no symbol. Okay, I got it. All right. Tell me, is there a project that you would like to work on? What is that? What is that, Anna?
I want to work on a scarf.
Okay. Do you want a dressy scarf? You want a casual scarf? What kind do you want to work on?
I don't really know.
You want a winter one? Thick one?
Okay.
The yarn that we're using, that you're using, I think, did you get that here at the library?
What?
No? If you're going to do a winter scarf, I would recommend using one that's going to need, when you read the label, it's going to say that it needs something like a 13 needle. That's going to be a little bit thicker. What size needles are you all using?
I have a size 8 needle.
Size 8, okay. That's like a medium needle.
Mary,
this wood, which I would not recommend for you, is when you start to knit with this is like knitting with dental floss. It's really teeny tiny, and I wouldn't advise that. If you can start on what is called a chunky yarn, bulky yarn, that would probably be best. It's going to use something like a 13, not for several reasons. One is you can see your stitches better, and another is you're going to make you're going to make progress a lot faster. So I think that would be good. Next time, I think we'll start working on the basis for how many stitches to put on your needle, and get going. Anna, you think you could get the yarn you want to work with before then?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Well, then we can actually start. So, Mary, how are you doing with yours? Are you okay?
Mhm.
Do you need to go over anything?
No.
We have time if you want to. No problem.
No.
Okay, good. Okay. Once again, this is the stockinette, and it's flat like most of your sweaters. If you look at your sweaters, it's going to look pretty much like that. And you usually don't turn your sweaters over, but it's going to be bumpy on the other side. This is the garter stitch. I like the stitch because it's textural. It's the easiest one you can do, but I think it looks a lot harder than it really is. So I like the stitch. So practice this week. Continue your practicing, because the more you practice, the more it'll get to where you can do it without even thinking. And then we can get going on our project, which is a scarf. Is that good? Okay, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.